All right. Welcome to episode 3 of the Overdose Peak Season Power Season series. So this is part of a 6-piece series that we built to essentially get digital and e-commerce professionals prepared for their peak season fast. So each episode is packed with a bunch of practical insights that you can take away. And if you've missed any so far, you can actually view the full lineup on our site at overdose.digital/peak season power series. And our door is always open to your curiosity, your questions. Our proverbial door is always open. Definitely reach out to us. My name is Ash. I'm an SEO lead at Overdose Digital, and with me is Sereena, also an SEO lead at Overdose Digital. So over the next half an hour, we'll be diving into peak season SEO, going through all things in prep for your Black Friday peak season there. And following up at the end, we'll go through a bit of a Q&A if any questions pop up. But as for now, let's get into it. All right, optimizing for SEO and your peak season prep. So our agenda for today is we're going to look at how we identify opportunities that we want to pursue, how we optimize for Google's LLMs, how we want to prepare our merchant center, when we need to get certain things done by, and then finally, how we measure success.
So I think in general, Ash, you probably agree that sometimes SEO gets forgotten in peak season preparation. A lot of focus is on more performance marketing channels, but SEO is still really important. And we pulled out some key reasons here on why we think that you should consider SEO quite strongly as part of the mix coming up to peak season. So there's a lot of increased search volumes during peak season. So obviously search demand does surge in November, but even to the lead up, we do notice in October, people are really starting to create their wish list and search for what they might want to buy in November. Also, alongside that, that comes with higher conversion rates. So shoppers visiting during Black Friday do have a lot higher intent in buying. Alongside that, CPC spikes, so paid ads become quite expensive due to the competition, and organic search is a cheaper channel to be able to run. And then also, if you set up your SEO pages now, they really do compound each year and allow you to, I guess, have results and strengthen rankings as time goes on, meaning that the effort you put in now might have a lot of results in the years to come. So first step, identifying opportunities. So first we want to start by basic keyword research on seasonal terms. Some key things here that we really want to start with is just having a look at what your direct competitors are doing and seeing what Black Friday pages they have on the site. You'll notice that a lot of our big players do have multiple pages. So not only a Black Friday sale hub, but they'll have skincare, makeup, hair care, basically a page for every category. And these generally do target high intent Black Friday keywords. We also want you to consider replicating this across sale pages. Like, people don't always search with Black Friday in the keyword. They might just search for sale. So what I normally recommend is to create your pages out for Black Friday and just replicate that without the Black Friday attached to it, and just replicate it for sale pages. One thing that you should consider if you're using any kind of keyword research tool is that the search volume is an average across the year. So you might notice that Black Friday terms might have quite low search volumes, and this is just because it is that average. So using a tool that breaks down search volumes by monthly is really handy to allow you to see what the search volume is for November rather than across the whole year. Another thing is kind of setting expectations and understanding our keyword competitiveness. So when we look at the search results here for a broad keyword like Black Friday deals, you can see that the brands listed like Myers, Good Guys, Amazon, Officeworks, these are all big enterprise level brands, and generally means that it's a lot more competitive to rank. And if you are, I guess, a smaller to medium brand, maybe the chances of ranking here might not be as easy and will take a lot more effort and time to get there. Whereas if we look at category specific search results, so for example, Black Friday skincare deals, you can see that the search results are a lot more relevant to that industry. So Adore Beauty, Kiehl's, La Roche-Posay. So it generally is a lot less competitive if you are a key brand in that industry, and it means that it's a higher chance of you ranking. And this is one of the reasons why we do recommend to break out your category pages for Black Friday by more niche, longer tail keywords. Another thing that sometimes gets forgotten is, yes, users are searching with sale intent keywords, but they're also searching for generic terms. So you can see on the right here is a breakdown of search volumes for the last 12 months. And for skincare and dresses, November brings in the highest amount of searches. This is no sale attached. So these are generic terms. So it is really important that we optimize our key pages so we can still capture that high intent traffic for more generic terms.
All right, I'm going to pull it to not using third party and instead using first party data here. So if you've configured your GA4 to capture internal search data, you can actually start leveraging what people are actually searching on your site. So if you were to do this and check that you've set it up, you can navigate to admin in the bottom left, look at data streams, and then enhanced measurement. If you are tracking this correctly, hopefully you should see that you've got site search enabled, which is in that little green square box on the right. And then beneath that again, if you were to click through to that, you can see a number of different search query parameters there. And that's just the default out of the box setup that you see there. If your query was, I don't know, something like cat equals or something, that wouldn't be captured because you would need to input that into your search term query parameter there. We'll go to the next slide. Now, provided we're tracking this correctly, one thing that you can do in GA4 is you can set up an exploration. And this is pretty cool for just getting really quick reports set up. But in this example here, this is looking at October and November in 2024. And we're comparing that to the previous period because ideally search starts to ramp up in October. And by doing that comparison, we can get a pretty clear, I guess, gauge on what has ramped up. So if our dimension is search underscore term, we're tracking event counts for that. And then we filter it down to be view underscore search underscore results. It means that we're actually looking at any time someone has searched a specific keyword. And in doing that, we're seeing in that comparison on the right, a number of queries are really increasing in that lead up to peak season there. Now, the next thing you might be able to do is you can actually swap it to page refer. You can see where people are doing those searches as well. But in this example here, we're looking at making a report in Looker Studio if we wanted to get really quick visual insights. And it's going to be really cool just to get buy-in. But here, this is a GA for self-blend in Looker, in which we are subtracting October and November 2024, or actually subtracting the previous month period from that. And that gives us an absolute click difference or search difference of what has grown and what has gone down. And if you look at those numbers, what's increased by comparison, it's way different to what decreased there. Like we're literally in the hundreds, whereas on the contrary, what's declined is like 28. Can't really see that well, but that's what it should be. Now, furthermore, just on identifying these kind of opportunities here, you can actually also use item data. Now, this is different from using page level data in GA4, but item level data is its own cohort of information here. And something that can be pretty cool here is if you set up a table to be item name, the number of times it was viewed, number of times it was purchased, and then creating a little calculated field to assess the conversion rate between that, we can actually start to cherry pick what has exponentially grown. And in those three examples that I've highlighted there, we can see that in peak season, those have been ramping up in interest, but they were purchased 0 times. It's important to strategize. How do we actually capitalize on that? What do we want to do with that information? I know that I'd want to be making sure that if I have a Black Friday category, I'm making sure that those are merchandised right near the top. If I have a listicle that is maybe best category under X amount of dollars, I'm calling out those products as well. So I'm making sure that they're in consideration because we have proven that there is interest there. Now, to summarize this whole section, it's important to just finalize our selection. And in doing that, I've just created a little mind map here or flow chart where we just look at the different categories of pages you can create. So when it's a top level Black Friday page, that's very brand focused. So people are going to search your brand and then Black Friday. Following that, important categories beneath that as a tier 2. And then following that again, maybe you sell brand products, then you can also capitalize on those brand names. And it's important here that we take a testing mindset here. Not everything's going to work, but at least if we try, we can pivot, test new things next year. And that's what matters most.
Perfect. So now that we have our landing pages that we have created, we need to go into how we optimize them for success. So really on-page elements such as our meta title and description are really important to have done. Sometimes they are missing, and these are ranking factors, particularly the meta title. So making sure that you include the target keyword and closer to the time when the promotion is live, including that as well can increase click-through rates. And then with the meta description, just cutting through the noise of an engaging description and a strong call to action with the promotion, free shipping, all those good stuff. When creating the URL, this is something we see quite regularly. We do not want to include the dates or year within that URL just because we want to reuse it every single year. So creating an evergreen URL makes it easy for us to do so. When we look at the on-page content, so the right is an example of a page before the sale has actually started. And you can see that there's a lot of elements on the page that really help users kind of engage with the page and come back later. So we always want to have a clear H1 with the target keyword. This is a really big, important ranking factor. And even when the sale is over, or in this example, it hasn't even happened yet, having that H1 target the keyword consistently throughout all the year is really important. The next thing is having links to priority categories. Now, these could be the extra Black Friday pages that you created. So if we use the guitar example, you could have guitars, speakers, all those things for the Black Friday specific pages. And then an early access call to action. So something that makes the users engage with the page, even if it's not a sale. So become a member, sign up for early access, all these types of things. And really having this stuff up as soon as possible really matters, because the pages that are live for longer could acquire more page rank and drive positive signals, which subsequently help them rank a bit better in the lead up to Black Friday. We also really encourage having content on the page. So having content such as FAQs is quite consistent when you look at all of the pages ranking. And these really help to, one, encourage users to click through on the site and increase engagement. And then also is a ranking signal to Google. So having a clear mapping of the entities, Black Friday, our brand, and key categories within that content is also a really easy way for us to help provide stronger ranking signals. So we've included this little checklist here, which you can access after to make sure that your page is set up for success and help you begin ranking in time for Black Friday.
Okay, optimizing for LLMs. So currently 80% of what you should currently be doing as SEO best practice will get you there. But there's one very crucial element that we just need to address. AI crawlers or LLMs, they do not server-side render content. So they only do client-side rendering. That means that they can't execute JavaScript. So just making sure that your content appears when JavaScript is disabled puts you ahead of many other players that don't do that. In this example here, we can see we're just using Dish here, but their product grid does not render when JavaScript is turned off. Now, how can you do this? The easiest way would be to essentially just download a Chrome extension. There's plenty out there that do it. Click of a button, you can disable JavaScript and see how your page appears. Otherwise, there's other methods. You can do it through Chrome DevTools. Alternatively, you can also capture or copy an important piece of the page, whether that's a piece of text, a product link, and then inspect the page or view page source and see that it's in there. I do recommend in that case actually view page source, because that's before JavaScript has been executed. So you do that, make sure the content's in there, and then you should be good. All right, on to how we can further support AI. So currently, ChatGPT usage jumped about 70% from January to June this year, and shopping-related prompts actually rose about 25%. So one thing that, maybe it's not super specific to Black Friday, but you can actually prepare content that is aligned with the way that users do search on these platforms. In this example here, we're kind of doing a whole, what's the best running shoe under $200 in this case. Now, just having pages that do have intent towards that just allows it to be a little bit easier when they scrape our site or crawl our site to actually get that information and connect the dots together.
Cool. Now onto optimizing our merchant center. So just a brief overview on why products and merchant centers are really important now, particularly with SEO. So as you have probably noticed that the search results are very different to what they were a year ago. And instead of having those traditional 10 blue links, you can now see they are filled with product merchant center feeds, and then also filters as well to kind of create a category page to be able to compete with Amazon and essentially help users not really have to bounce between different search engines and pages and just shop directly from the search results. So that means that, yes, category pages are still really important, but we also now need to spread the love equally and consider how our product pages and merchant center feeds are optimized. So to do so, I think now more than ever, SEOs are collaborating a lot more with other kind of channels, particularly performance marketing teams who typically do look after the merchant center feed for their paid shopping ads, as well as e-commerce and merchandising who really make sure that the product data there is fit to go and elaborate enough to be able to feed into merchant center. So I've just listed a couple of important attributes that you should go in and check are filled out and are comprehensive enough. For example, the description, we want to make sure that we're pulling a large description that targets the keywords, has the product types in there and all these different attributes, as well as that filling out any additional fields, as many as we can. So for example, product highlight, product details, making sure our color, material, patterns, all these things are filled out. We can obviously help you audit it as well, but these are just the key things that we really think that you should be keeping an eye on in the lead up to Black Friday. Another thing that we got from a peak preparation workshop Google held in New Zealand was these are the most impactful annotations to use. So you can see here things such as having ratings, promotion badges, sale price badges, fast and free shipping. All of these lead to either a click-through rate uplift or a conversion rate uplift. So speaking to whoever is looking after your feed and making sure that we're enabling as many as we can also help enhance performance during Black Friday. Cool. So now we have all of this stuff. What and when do we need to do it by? So typically 3 months is a good, healthy period to start thinking about Black Friday from an SEO perspective, making sure that if we're creating new pages, they are created as soon as possible. Once they're created, we want them to be live every year. So essentially just trying to get them up as quick as possible because it does take time for Google to crawl, index, and rank the contents of the page. One thing is that again, just highlighting, it's really important not to put the year on because they are going to be being used every year, and to fast track indexing using Google Search Console. Entering the page at the top in the search bar and force indexing it as well can quicken the process for these new pages. And then we want to go through that optimizing content checklist. The content should be updated to reflect the year. So if this page was used last year, making sure we update it to 2025. We don't need to include any specific promotions at all, but that evergreen Black Friday content that we mentioned in the previous slides all should be up on there so it can begin to be indexed and crawled and used as a ranking factor. In the lead up to Black Friday, the promotions are live. We're really in the feelings of Black Friday being here. You want to link to the pages. So we really recommend that linking these pages in the drop down in the navigation One really helps Google to understand their important pages and help them to effectively and efficiently crawl them. But it also really helps users navigate and find the sales that they're after. And then also internally linking to each other. So using those kind of category carousels, making sure that Black Friday skincare is linking to Black Friday makeup allows Google to understand the relationship between them, find them more easier, and again, help those ranking signals. Then we want to update it with the promotion. So making sure that there's banners on the site and on the pages. And I guess what would be really great is if you could update it, all your meta titles with the promotion. So for example, all your pages having 30% off site-wide. If that is too much effort, just making sure that at least that CTA is really on your homepage and your Black Friday sale pages. Post Black Friday, one thing we see all the time is people don't keep the page alive. They think the Black Friday's over, let's delete it and we'll start one up next year. That is a big no-no. As you'll see when you search up Black Friday, all of these brands, even if you search it up in February, keep their pages up live all year round. And that's because making the page a 404 means we're telling Google that the page won't return and we forfeit all of the rankings and link equity that we've built towards that page. So therefore, we really recommend to just keep it a 200 status, and to help ensure that it's not really easily findable to users, we just unlink that page from everywhere. Contrary to some SEOs' belief, having orphan pages is perfectly fine in this instance. So the only way a user would be able to find it if they were searching up Black Friday sales, which I don't think they will throughout the year. And that's just one way to ensure it's still being crawled, but users won't really come across it. And then also as an extra safety measure, remove any of that promotional content. So if you had a 30% off site-wide sale, just removing that so users aren't expecting anything. And typically we just replace it with a message like, sorry, Black Friday's over, come back next year to find the best deals in 2026. That way users aren't going to come to you and say, you owe me 20%. Cool. So on to Ash on how to measure it.
All right. Final run for us. So measuring success. Now, I'm going to go through two things. One is going to use Search Console, just make it super quick and easy. Then the next one will be using Looker Studio. So in this example here, provided you've got your URLs, they've got a very clear naming convention, such as they all say Black-Friday. You could navigate to the Performance tab. You can set your date range, and then you can filter to your specific pages there. Now, at the bottom, you'll see that there's a few different views that you can take, a table of data. Most people will use queries and pages. So, immediately, if you didn't want the hassle of creating a report, this is a very nice way to just get a quick check of how you performed. Now, if we were using Looker Studio, now my preferred way to do this is I would actually do a data blend of GSC URL impressions and GA4. Now, the reason for this is I want to look at how we performed in the SERPs and then also how we performed from a website point of view there. Now, to do this, there's one headache that does appear, and that's there's no natural join key for landing pages between the two data sources. You need to create that. So what you can do there is there's a little example on the right there in which you can create a calculated field. And in that one there, I'm actually shortening the GSC URL to match Google Analytics, because Google Analytics only shows the path. Now, following that, you would need to create a calculated field, and you would actually need to do this on both data sources there, because we want to meaningfully capture only our Black Friday URLs. Now, what that could look like is this. So right now, that's a data blend of GSC URL and GA4. And you can see two headers there, one that says SERP performance and the other one that says website performance. Now, the cool thing about this is we're seeing things like our URL clicks, our impressions, our click-through rate, and then we're moving that into things like sessions, add to carts, and total revenue generated. Now, there's a few nuances there that we need to consider, and attribution is the big one there. So not all revenue is going to be tied to those collection pages there. Revenue can be tied to the product pages. It can be tied to the checkout page. So we've got that as a little bit of a reporting difficulty to navigate there. And then finally, there's also multi-channel touch points to consider as well. So these pages that we create, they're not just for SEO, but they can also be used to amplify ads as well. And even users who want to search direct too. So they're really great. At the end of the day, these pages have such high conversion because they're often users who've been holding out to make their purchase. And look, to wrap it all up, our key takeaways. So create the landing pages and just do it. Don't even hesitate. Otherwise, you get nothing done. Nothing changes. Now, optimize the content on those landing pages. And to summarize that one, think about the entities you're connecting, the Black Friday sale to your brand, to the products or categories that you sell. Ensure it's crawlable for LLMs. So server-side rendering is honestly, that is your foundation. Get that right. You shouldn't have much else to worry about. Everything beyond that is just going to be a bit more on the intermediate to advanced side, following that to get that extra 20%. Optimized Merchant Center. We do know that a lot of category-oriented searches do now surface things like popular products. So naturally, we see things like a category clicks go down, but products are going up. So ensure that we're visible, in shopping. And then finally, measuring success, just to make sure you're not all talk for what you did. And, you can actually do a look back, assess, learn, and then pivot on the next year. And that wraps it up. So if there's any questions, pop it in the chat and we will answer.
Cool. No questions. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Hopefully you'll now consider SEO as part of your marketing channels leading up to peak season. Next week we have Isabella with CRO. So be sure to tune in next Tuesday, I believe. And yeah, let us know if you digested this and have any more questions.